Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in another of my wonderful interviews. Now, you may remember, if you've been watching the channel for some time, you remember that just before June, I think it was, I had a mysterious phone call from somebody who was very concerned about what was going on, and they were getting something in motion, and it was all very mysterious, and I was left to sort of, oh, that sounds very interesting, but we didn't really know. But there was a meeting, and this took place in Stroud on the 18th of June, and I was invited, and a number of other people were invited, sort of movers and shakers, if you like, of the freedom and the truth and that sort of thing. And we met up and we had this amazing thing, and I reported back, and we had a couple of people from that after the event to talk about what had gone on. And then it all went a bit quiet, and I know that a number of people have been saying, Richard, you went to that meeting, and what's come of it, called the Great Rising? Whatever became of it? Well, in the background, things have been going on, and of course, like all things, they take a little bit of time to organise because nobody's being paid. It's not a corporation. It's not an organisation in and of itself. And so I've managed to track down two of the people, and I thought it's about time we caught up and found out what's been going on with the Great Rising. So I'm pleased to bring to the show two of those exponents. We've got Joe St. Clair and Justin Walker. Joe, welcome first of all. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thanks. It's great to be back, Richard. It's great to see you. And first of all, congratulations on your show. You've had some incredible speakers and people who share the same philosophy, and they're behind the Great Rising. And so we're delighted to be back and giving you an update.
Well, that's very, very kind of you. We've also got Justin there. Hello, Justin.
Hello, Richard. Hello. It's good to see you again. Uh,
Lovely to have you back on. We know that you've been on several times talking about money and
yeah,
sovereign
yeah,
money in particular, of
yeah.
course.
Well, I may touch on it yet again because I found
Fantastic.
something out yesterday, but yeah, it's all good.
Well, that's good because we need to keep reminding people what sovereign money is and how we can get out of the clutches, particularly at the moment with the advent of the banks disappearing and CBDs coming in and all of that. But let's go back to Joe to start with, and find out what's been going on with the Great Rising. Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Yeah, it's great to be back on the show because there's been an enormous amount of activity since we last spoke on the show. Yes, we had a very constructive meeting on the 18th of June in Stroud. We had a great number of people there, some really great speakers. I learned a hell of a lot on that day. We broke into subgroups. We talked about all the things that are going on. We came up with strategies moving forward, and we're now in the process of putting those strategies into motion. So there's a number of updates that I think your listeners may be interested to hear about. One of them that is very hot news is that we've decided to relaunch a magazine that was started a couple of years ago and then went into a lull. But we're bringing the magazine out again, and it will effectively be the the mouthpiece of the Great Rising. So the objective of the magazine is to have high quality writers contributing articles about all the things that we're facing in the world today, everything that's going on around us, well researched, well referenced articles. And they will be put in this magazine, and it will be out there for your listeners and other supporters to get really good, deep insights into what's really going on. So we're quite excited about the magazine. And one of the team has also been developing a very thorough resource database, as he calls it, where once it's completely finished, people will be able to access information on the areas that concern them. The other thing is that we have kind of a variety of different topics that we're researching and monitoring. And one of the movements within the Great Rising, a kind of subdivision, has got the working title From Corporate Britain to Sovereign Britain. And under that heading, the concept behind it is a strategy and detailed steps from moving from the corporate Britain that most of us don't want at
Mm.
the moment, to a more sovereign Britain where the people have more control over their own destinies. So lots of monitoring, lots of research, lots of documents, new magazine, a new movement from corporate to sovereign, and a new database. So there's lots keeping us busy.
And will I mean the magazine sounds absolutely brilliant, and will that because that's a tool like the Light newspaper again,
Yeah.
which is a newspaper. Will the magazine be able to provide guides for people who want practical suggestions of things to do? I mean, we know that people are tackling the corporate Britain in many different ways, like with the council tax and showing the fraud where there is fraud. And I think I know from the interacting with my viewers and actually meeting them and going to give talks and things that people are very keen to have guidance on what they can actually do, because they do a lot of research online with the plethora of different platforms and different videos, but people really want to grab hold of something and feel that they've got a direction where they know it can make a difference.
Yeah, good points. And there's two things that I ought to highlight there in response to your question. The first one is that we intend to have lots of links in the articles to a number of video resources that can be very, very helpful, which support the articles. They come on the back of the individual articles. But the other thing that we've been working on, the Great Rising team, is pulling together a coordinated strategy for exactly what you've just described, which is we're here with the problems and we want to be here and we need to know the steps to get from A to B. That document's been completed and circulated to the team for feedback. The feedback's gone back to the writer. And I would say we're probably 98, 99% complete on that strategy. Certainly, it will be out amongst the team within the next few days. And that is actually highlighting the steps that you've just alluded to. Yeah.
And of course, I mean, there are a lot of organizations, initiatives, and people across the world who are already rising, Great Awakening, Great Resist, all these sort of initiatives that are going on. Now, I remember when I first came to the meeting on the 18th of June, it was very important. The message was that you are not an organization that's authoritative or trying to push an agenda or anything like that. Are you able to just reassure people on that, and so people quite understand what you mean really by the Great Rising?
Yeah, that's a very important point, and it does need to be absolutely clear. There are there are a lot of organizations being formed all over the world for good purposes, with good people, and for the right reasons. But in a sense, once you've got an organization with that kind of structure, you can be targeted by the people who don't want you around, basically. So the Great Rising does not have a structure. It doesn't have a hierarchy. It doesn't have a chairman, a CEO, a treasurer. It doesn't have a building. It's not about an organization that can be targeted. It's about a philosophy or a concept that's been taken up all over the world. For example, almost everyone you interview on your shows is technically part of the Great Rising. I'm in touch with friends and colleagues all over the world who are behind the Great Rising, particularly in the US, and adopting the same ethos and principles as we are. So the Great Rising is a global movement,
Mm.
but you cannot pin it on one person or a small group of people, and that's a deliberate policy that so far is working to our advantage.
So the magazine and the website is sort of signposting people, helping people without actually having its own, set of rules or guidelines that you need to register, all those sort of things that people are avoiding at the moment. Words like register, which is part of corporations and things like that.
Exactly, yeah, and that's
Mm.
why the magazine will welcome articles, and we'll be talking more about this in the coming weeks. But we'll be happy to accept articles from people who are across the world, in the UK, anyone who's got a particular movement they want to promote or to explain what they're doing, whether it's 15-minute cities, whether it's 5G, whether it's the digital banking, artificial intelligence, any of these issues. We would welcome submitted articles. We will edit them, but we'll put them out there as being the voice of the Great Rising, whoever it comes from. If it's a good article, it gets in the magazine and it's shared.
One of the things that the Great Rising seems to imply is optimism.
Absolutely.
And is that shared in, because often when you get information about what's going on and you're trying to open people's eyes, is that it can be quite scary and quite frightening, and people will want to put their head in the sand and go, no, it's not happening, and there's that going on. I from our conversations that we've had, my understanding is that the whole approach is to be as optimistic, to raise vibrations, and keep people hopeful, I suppose, that we are going to win against this battle.
Yeah, absolutely. A very important point. There is huge optimism within the team. We can clearly see that the people we're up against are on the back foot. I call them the puppeteers because they're the people pulling the strings at the highest level. And I think what they've tried to do is too much, too quickly. And now they're being caught out and exposed all over the world. And decent, good people are waking up in their thousands across the globe. So I'm very, very optimistic, and I have no doubt that we are going to win this battle, because everything we're doing is we're standing united with our brothers and sisters across the world. There's even a kind of spiritual dimension to what we're doing, and we take that very seriously. Because when you go deep down the rabbit hole and start doing research, you do find that there are a few people who we're up against who are actually, I would use the word evil without, without apology. So in a sense, it's also not just a fight for truth and justice and sovereignty, but it's also a fight against evil. And I think we're winning on all fronts. And I'm very excited. I meet some wonderful, great people every day doing amazing things, and people coming together. You mentioned the Great Resist earlier on. We're now working very closely with the Great Resist as well, and bringing in lots of influential people. I'm very excited. It's a great time in history to be doing what we're doing. And we're very determined.
And you've sent me a video file. Should we play that in before we go over to have a word with Justin?
I think that would be a great idea. Just to put it in context, one of the things we've done in the Great Rising movement is to create a very short, punchy little video showing our logo and showing what we're all about. So if you can show that, Richard, that would be great. And then I'll hand over to Justin, who can talk more about some of the subjects I've alluded to.
Brilliant. Well, let's have a look at it now. Well, there you go. That is the video there, finishing with a very dramatic still shot of the air. Let's go to Justin. I believe you're there now, Justin. Hello, Justin.
No. And I'm
Um,
being savaged by our dog as we speak. I just knew I hadn't quiet, but it's all right. I think we're okay.
that's all right. It's good to. What I love in doing this is because we're all. I was going to say we're all amateurs, but in the nicest possible way. We're all working, from home, and we're all, build our own studios. It's not a complete slick, money-paid operation. All of that. So when you've got the odd incurrence, things like your dog's coming in and getting in, and sometimes I have the cat coming past the studio. It makes it real, makes it human, which is what it's all about. So if you get savaged whilst we record, that's absolutely fine with us. We'll enjoy it. So yes, over to you, Justin. What's been going on from your point of view?
Well, I think the most important. Oh, look, I'm sorry. I'm afraid someone wants to share the limelight. It's typical. This is live television. Don't interfere with your.
He does look a lovely. He does look a lovely dog.
He's a real muttler. He's only a puppy, and he's got very sharp teeth.
Yes.
Right, where are we going? We outnumber the enemy. This is the most important thing. We've got to get everyone. We are going to win this. There's no ifs, no buts about this.
Right.
Our population is supposed to be around 8 billion, so they tell us.
Mm.
Well, I was told by insiders that there's only around 8,000 of the other side. We'll call them the other side. And that means, effectively, there's 1 million of us for every one of them. So, hang on a moment. I think those odds are pretty good. And where the enemy have not got their people on the ground and the resources, it is at a local level. And when you look at net zero and the Great Reset and the sustainability, what they're going to try and impose upon us with their 15-minute cities and everything else, apart from a chief executive of a council and maybe one or two paid people who are there to promote what they're coming up with, the people on the ground, they're not going to go along with this because they're building a prison, a digital prison for themselves. And this is where people are going to rise up. And one of the most brilliant things we're seeing at the moment is this, well, we're calling them shadow sovereign councils, but they're parallel sovereign councils. And I've got a list here. I've got my crib sheet because, as the old grey cells depart, one's got to have crib sheets in the oil. Anyway, but you've got Hereford, Thetford, Oxford, Glastonbury, Colchester, Portsmouth. Portsmouth, you did a video with Rob, I think it was, of Pompeyhood. Absolutely brilliant, exposing the whole criminality behind the council tax and how we organise it. It's brilliant. This is what we need. This is now where people are waking up and seeing how we're all prisoners of a system, a corporate system, which just shouldn't exist. It's incredible how we've allowed it to continue.
And the other thing, I don't want to interject too much, but the other thing I think is that what we're beginning to realise is just how anti-human this corporate Britain has become. The way it's penalising us for things that really don't matter so much. Where's the crime? Where's the victim? Who's actually been hurt? And a lot of it does seem to be about just sucking the life out of people, not, well, literally in some cases, but financially. People are beginning to see in lots of different ways where they're being got at.
Yeah, well, I mentioned at the beginning that I've got some new financial information, which absolutely shows how we're all being ripped off. Now, the City of London effectively controls the Crown and it controls Parliament. And of course, as I pointed out in a previous programme, in 1914, the British government created through the Treasury debt-free, interest-free money that was based on the nation's wealth and creativity. And the Treasury actually does this today with the loose coins in your pocket, the £1, the £2, the 50p's, the 10p's and whatever. And that fiscal arrangement is actually done. But what they don't do is do the big money and the digital money. okay, that they leave to the City of London. Now, as you know, we have a national debt. Well, I discovered yesterday, because I got the new figures, that the national debt has now gone up to 2.59 trillion pounds. And
2.5,
the
so nearly
monthly
3 trillion.
repayment, yeah, so the monthly repayments amount to 8 to 9 billion pounds a month. And that's just to pay the interest. And that means 110 billion pounds disappears, which is tax money, our money, real money. It goes to pay off this national, or not the, just to pay off the interest of this national debt. What the heck could we do with 110 billion pounds to improve education, to improve social services, to improve a national health service, which is a genuine health service, not agents of big pharma? When you look at what we could do with that money to improve a lot, you wouldn't have anyone on the streets. I mean, it's just incredible what we could do with that money. And yet that money is being used to service a debt, just the interest on something that the City of London set up in 1694. And we've been living with it, and nobody bothers to question it. I'm pleased to report that one MP is going to be questioning it, and we are certainly now going to do a counterattack to make people realize that there is another way to create the money needed by the nation to provide our services and our infrastructure. But that's just one example of how we are prisoners of the
Yes.
City of London and the corporate system.
The national debt, that 9 billion that we're paying back, to whom are we? We're paying it back to the bankers in the City of London, are we?
Well, basically, I mean, how would the government do it? They issue bonds or gilts, and they're bought up by pensions. They're bought up by the central banks create the money. They're bought up. There's all sorts of shenanigans going on, and of course, the more complicated it is, the more criminality they can hide. The essential truth is we're not told the truth about money creation and money supply, and unfortunately, it is our collective ignorance that has allowed them to get the upper hand over us. And this is why we can rid ourselves of the entire corporate system. The City of London. The City of London is a country within itself. This is something a lot of people don't realize, that the City of London is actually a state within a state. Um, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. And until people wake up to the reality that we are controlled by unelected, unaccountable people who meet in complete secrecy, until we wake up to that fact, we are going to be suffering. We are going to be taken down the route towards this global technocracy. Look at China, that's what's coming to Britain. And you can see it happening everywhere now. Cameras are going up and everything else. But the good
So the
news
Great
is,
Rising is there to expose it, to expose
yeah,
this, from the signpost and the magazine and the website and the initiatives that are going off and the various groups are doing their best.
yeah.
You said an MP is going to expose that. Am I guessing that might be Andrew Bridgen?
I'm talking with Andrew about the Bradbury pound. He is certainly amazed because, like a lot of people, they didn't know because it has been airbrushed out of history. If it hadn't been for a retired director of the Bank of England on his deathbed getting his son to ring me, I would never have heard about the Bradbury pound. There were just a handful of people who were still like the glowing embers, keeping the truth alive about what happened in 1914. And of course, as I said, that fiscal arrangement is used for the change in your pockets. Debt free, interest free. It hasn't got, I promise to pay the bearer the sum of on each coin. No, because it's money created based on the wealth of the nation.
And how would you implement that then? If we went to CBDCs and people are panicking, they're going to lose their money in the bank, they don't
Well,
want to switch over. How do we switch over to a
let's
Bradbury
be, let's
type?
be brutally honest. I would not trust this government and the existing setup we have in Parliament, where you have career politicians and political parties. I wouldn't trust them with the power of sovereign money, because the
No.
sooner we get shut of the current system, And I mean, one of the things that I'm warming to, and I know Joe does, and in fact all of us do, is the idea that we harness wisdom and experience, and we perhaps go back to history, but it used to have witans, which are wise people advising the king. Maybe we ought to, we are the only generation that can look at the whole kaleidoscope of history and see what worked, what didn't work, etc., etc. And maybe we should take a leaf out of the indigenous peoples who put their elders on the throne. They listen to the wisdom and experience that comes from their mouths. They don't just send them off to old people's homes and pretend they're a problem and, oh God, we'll go and visit them once a week or whatever. No, it's time we harness wisdom, and we harness what they've been through and what they've understood, etc. And it's common sense. And the bottom line is all that we're saying is common sense. So the most important thing is we look at this idea of elected witant. We must be elected. We can't just impose people upon. It's got to go through some sort of electoral process. That's true democracy. But maybe we ought to have a veritocracy. I mean, make it an improved version of democracy. A veritocracy, veritas, truth, is a democracy that only goes where the truth takes you. And that is absolutely crucial. When you look at how science has been suppressed, I mean, look at Nikola Tesla, that great inventor at the turn of the 20th century, how his inventions have been, again, airbrushed out of history where possible. And a few brave souls are keeping that technology alive. We could have real free energy. I mean, imagine sovereign money with free energy. Just imagine what sort of economy you could have.
I can imagine it, Justin. What I think the audience will be saying is that, well, how do we do it? At the end of the day,
by making people know about it to start with. It's our ignorance that's got to be overcome. Once our ignorance is out of the way and we start to have democratic conventions, we start to get everyone to come and give their ideas. You've got some superb people who come onto your show with lovely ideas. Let them all get round the table, because we're all wanting to the same thing. We want a nation that's driven by happiness, prosperity, and real ecology. It's not about the pursuit of happiness; it's achieving happiness.
Yes, I mean, I think we're sort of fairly clear what we want. It's how we get there. And you said get them round a table. Is that something that the Great Rising can facilitate, to have meetings across the country where these people can meet and do that, like the Witan you mentioned?
We are here to put ideas into the fray. We're not here to tell people or anything else. As Joe said, we're not an organization. We have no hierarchy. We have no leaders. We have those of us who have spent decades researching and talking to insiders and talking and if you like, getting a balanced picture, etc., etc. So we'd like to think that our voices would be held. But the bottom line is, we just want consensus to be reached. People will come together and they will find the right way.
Okay, so I'm just trying to get a feel, because if you're not an organisation as such, then and what you're offering is you're monitoring what's going on and you're putting ideas out. And I think the idea you just said then is a brilliant idea, but we need people to enact them, to get people from all these different initiatives round a table for discussion purposes only, not to sort of come to any set decision that everybody has to follow. And I think that would be great to see. And maybe there's somebody in the audience watching thinking, great, this is something from this conversation that we've had, that if I went to, I don't know, the Catherine McBean's organisation, the Public Health Alliance, or the Public Alliance, as I believe she's now calling it, where they're doing so much, and all of these different organisations, and get them around the table and say, how do we make this grow without losing each and everyone's identity and authority, as it were?
Well, what I'm discovering is that all the people I'm meeting and talking now, all these different groups, we're all leaving our egos at home. We just want to see success, because we can see the evil that's on the horizon. We can see, look at China. Look how people literally have their lives controlled 24/7 by artificial intelligence. And God knows, with transhumanism on the horizon, when they start to interfere with humanity.
Absolutely. I know, and I keep coming back to this. I think people know what they don't want. It's how we get to what we do want. Let's go back to Joe, if I may. Joe.
Yeah.
How do we get there? we know that there is this tyranny. We know, and of course we can alert people to it. But I think from my perspective, my viewers will be criticizing me if I'm not asking, what can we do? What can they do? How do we take the Great Rising as an influence to make things happen?
Yeah, a very important question. And what we are doing all the time, Justin alluded to it, is we are constantly, every hour of every day, linking people together. So we're in a position which is very fortunate that we're getting a quite deep insight into what's going on all around the country. And if we spot that there's a group in one town doing something the same as another town, we're a good linking mechanism to get them together and start talking together. And equally, all the listeners on your show, there are going to be people listening now who may be saying, "Oh, I know about sovereign law, or I know about what's going on with 5G." It'd be great to bring those people in. Yes, we can use their expertise. That's what we're looking for. And this linking together is actually growing global momentum. I'm going to be talking on Sunday to a friend of mine who has got a radio show on Radio Seattle, and he had a regular listening base of 4 or 5 million global listeners at the beginning of 2019. Once the pandemic started and was going through 2020-21, his listening base has gone up to 56 million regular global listeners. And he is spreading the message of the Great Rising, not just in the States, but through that mechanism. So we're planning. I'm probably going to do an interview on his show. I've done it once before on Sunday. I'm planning that. So it is bringing together people. We can't do everything. As Justin said, we're a small team. But what we do is we coordinate, we monitor. The magazine will be a great outlet for connecting people. But we're also, if people want to contact us and say, maybe I can help in a certain sphere, we'll say, absolutely, come on board. And I mentioned at the beginning of this show the strategy that we've been putting together, which is actually specifically designed. What are the steps A to B, and that will be with us in a few days, and we can share that again on a future show.
So the main places that people can find out what you're up to would be the website, which I'll leave a link in the description, and the magazine. When will the magazine be starting to roll out? When can we anticipate to go and see it? And where can people find it? Will it be in shops, or will they only be online?
Well, we're still working on the final title. The original magazine we had a title for, and we've got a number of alternative titles. But we are now in the position. I had a long conversation with the publisher the day before yesterday. He's geared up and ready to publish. I've put word out calling for articles. We probably need, I would say, 14, maximum 15 articles in an edition. And once those articles have come to me, I do the editing, and then they're straight to the publisher. So as soon as the articles come in, within a week or two, we can get it out there. Previously, we would give out the magazine, the first magazine we had. We would give it out on the street, like the Light newspaper. We would give it out at festivals, rallies, protests. But now we're more geared up to actually get it out into other outlets. And the publisher's done an amazing job. He's actually gone out to news agents asking them to stock it at cost of £1 an issue. Lots of news agents have rejected it and said, no, it's a conspiracy theorist newspaper. But lots of others have said, absolutely, I support what you're doing. I'll put it here and I'll sell it, which is great. Yeah. And we'll be
on one level, of course, independent news agents ought to be supporting it, because the whole thing is about supporting independent, small, family-run businesses rather than these large corporations that extract all our money. So, and perhaps more as it's seen to be that, and less conspiratorial, that people will start to support it. And I guess being a magazine, is it then sort of like a glossy magazine? Is that the sort of thing that we're expecting to see?
Yeah, it's the light newspaper is a newspaper.
Yeah,
And I get it myself and I read it cover to cover, and the team
brilliant,
done a
yeah,
brilliant job. And I think the distinction with what we're bringing out is not a rival in any shape or form. It's complementary.
right,
But it will be a magazine. It will be in colour. And I think the main thing we are trying to really get across is every article will not just be about the problems, but will offer solutions. And that is what every writer that contributes an article to the magazine needs to understand in our kind of instruction,
yeah,
that
yeah,
we don't just want to put out bad news. We
right,
want to put out what's really happening and what you can do about it and who you can contact. So it's a
yeah.
slightly different slant, but I'm really excited about it. The first magazine was hugely popular. Unfortunately, it came to a grinding halt for a number of reasons. It's being resurrected this week, and yeah, I'm just excited about that.
Well, I think that, and also, a magazine that you can leave with a relative or a friend who are not yet fully open to all the ideas. They may not be open to, say, chemtrails or geoengineering or whatever, but they may be open to something else. And if you've got a broad magazine that's featuring various different articles on so many of those issues, there's bound to be something. It may be that they've bought an EV car, and every time they go to charge it up, the place they charge it up is out of order, which does seem to be on the rise at the moment. And so it's amazing what will attract people. There's so many of these issues, and then they flip to another article and go, blimey, I didn't know that. Which is very much what I suppose, people are rising up and learning and awakening and all those sort of things. So that sounds really promising and exciting, as you say.
Yeah,
Sure.
and the messages we're kind of putting out from all of the team is to your listeners and the general public alike, is start boycotting the controlled media. Stop watching BBC News. Stop watching mainstream media. Stop reading the daily newspapers, because you're going to be fed just massive lies. Go to the alternative news. People should be listening to your show.
Of course.
They should be going UK column, GB News. They're getting more, and what's happening, and I can see this from my where I stand, is that the actual figures for newspaper reading and BBC, people watching the TV, BBC News, is declining rapidly. And what's going up in the opposite direction is alternative news, because people want the truth.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
we're fully behind that. That's the
Brilliant. Well, listen, it's great to have had an update on everything. I think Justin wants to add one more thing. Justin?
There's one very important thing which I didn't say, and I think this will support what Joe's just said. We've got to use a lot of humour.
Yes.
We've got to have a lot of fun. And I'm going to sound like Frankie Howard, the late Frankie Howard. We've got We've got to do a lot of mockery. We've got to mock them, because they hate it. If there's one thing that really riles these psychopaths, is to be not taken seriously and mocked. Mock and more mockery. That is so important. And we must have fun, because if you're laughing, you're not showing fear. And fear is what they want to get you. They want to frighten you the whole time, where we're going to laugh in their faces. And could I suggest, if you haven't already seen it, there's a lovely black and white film done in the 1940s called Passport to Pimlico. And I've always loved that, because it was always about the little people getting the upper hand over the system. So
absolutely. It's a brilliant film. Stanley Holloway, Margaret Rutherford, and many others of that era.
Yeah.
Passport to Pimlico, yes.
Let's have fun. Let's have fun and do lots of mocking.
If I can find the link, I'll put it in so people could go and have that. But absolutely, I totally agree. Raise, and I do try that in many of my monologues and things, is to poke a bit of fun. And when I'm out doing my talks, it's mostly jokes, and people come away and they say, you know, not only is it's been a great evening and they've learnt things or whatever, but they've not gone away with that sinking feeling that it's an uphill struggle. That actually, you know, we are a united front, and that we've got something to fight for, and we're going to jolly well win, and we can laugh and poke our tongues at them and give them a good old raspberry, which I think the British do particularly well, as a nation, as a group of people. Well, Justin, thank you so much for coming on, and Joe as well. It's been lovely to see you both.
Thank you.
It's very exciting news, and I'm sure my viewers will be absolutely thrilled that there is something, because they were asking me what's happened, does it go quiet? And because things go quiet doesn't mean that then things have disappeared. It's very often the stuff that's going on in the background that you don't hear about. And so that's so important. So big thanks to Joe and Justin. I will be back again with more monologues and, of course, more of my wonderful interviews. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. And we'll keep you abreast. We'll get those fellas back on to tell us when the magazine is out and the website is up, although I'll put a link in there, and all those videos that they were talking about. But in the meantime, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.